Welcome, and thanks for joining me on the Ultimate 180 podcast. If you have ever felt exhausted, overwhelmed, or trapped in your own life and wish you were able to have a complete life makeover, well, then you're in the perfect place to learn how to pull an Ultimate 180 and change your life beyond all expectations. I'm your host, Christina Walker, and today I'm discussing a tricky little subject that could make a major impact on your income. Do you want to make more money? Like a lot more money? What if I told you that all your efforts and focus on making that happen could be the one thing that's actually holding you back? And what if it's the main reason you're not making more? And possibly you might even have experienced the feeling like the more I try, the worse it gets, kind of like with your budget, right? The more I try, the more I spend. And if any one of these things sound like you, or you just want to know a quicker way to have more, then stay tuned for this episode of The Ultimate 180. Before we dive in, I just want to ask you a quick favor. If this episode at all sparks something inside you, whether it's hope, inspiration, or even just a little nudge to think differently, please take a split second to hit that follow button on your podcast app and tag me on your social with your biggest takeaway or aha moment. It not only helps you stay connected to more life-changing insights, but you are also helping this podcast reach more people who may need just a little help changing their life too. So let's get started as we navigate change together, 1 degree at a time. Let's do this. More money. Who doesn't want that? I mean, just think of all the freedom money could bring to your life. More time to do things you love, be with the people you love, travel to new places, start new businesses, embark on your dream project. The possibilities are endless and so exciting. So, what do we naturally do? We look to money and business experts to find out all the hacks, the tips, the tricks. And all the gurus out there have all sorts of advice when it comes to money, like how to create a side hustle, how to get a raise, how to invest in stocks, how to invest in real estate, and on and on and on. And there's some great advice out there, but it can also be very overwhelming. I mean, have you ever been to a financial planner and they want you to come up with your number, like your retirement number? I mean, that can feel overwhelming and defeating, and it can also make you feel like giving up. So then, how are we constantly focused on making more money? How is it possible that that could be the problem? The focus itself be the problem? Because you know the old saying, you get what you focus on, and that's the problem. If you're focusing on needing more money, that is exactly what you will always get. You will always need more money. And this is where it gets tricky for people. Because the first thing people usually say to me when I point this out is something like, wait, I'm confused. Are you telling me that I shouldn't focus on getting more money? Because if I don't focus on the money, then I'm not telling my mind or the universe or something that I want money. And you said you get what you focus on, but that's not actually what's going on here. The problem lies in the fact that you're focused on the lack of money instead of focusing on the having of money. So, does that make sense? So, the lack of money is when you say, I want something. When you want, there is a big difference between wanting and having. There is a feeling inside of you when you want something. That means you don't have it yet. So that feeling of want, you know, my little radar, I like to talk about our little invisible radar from our brain that goes out and is seeking information all the time, the world around us. Your radar is only as good as your thoughts. So if your radar feels like, I want more money, I have to figure this out, I want, your radar is like, all right, I don't have any money. I don't have enough money. That's what I have. So it keeps you in the I don't have money framework. The feeling of having money is so expansive, right? You're like, this feels good. You know, when you get that paycheck or you get that lump sum or when you feel like you've got money, that's a whole different feeling. And you have to start getting into that feeling of having money to engage that radar to be able to hear and find and seek out opportunities and things and bring, and so that you'll hear it. Otherwise, you won't hear it. It will start saying, oh, wait, I have money. So all of these other things now become easier for you. And you pick up on things you'd never pick up on before. And the challenge here is when I tell people about this, they're like, well, wait a minute. Let's say I want to be a multimillionaire. How in the heck do I start feeling like I'm a multimillionaire if I've never been there before? And that is so valid because that therein lies the problem. You might have even heard this concept before of people saying, you know, just make sure you feel like you have something, like feel it to reel it and all of that. And the truth is yeah, you gotta feel it. So that's the gap where people are like, I don't understand. How in the heck am I supposed to feel it when I don't know how that feels? Like I feel like I have to be there to know how it feels. And there are three steps to get you there before you get there, because that is the most important thing. This is the concept of why people who are wealthy, if they lose all of their money, statistically, they will be wealthy again. And because they know the feeling of it and they are always hearing and seeing opportunities that we don't see. And so if we are in the pool of not having money, we don't hear it. Our radar does not pick up on things. Now, when you're in that feeling of having, just think of anything that you want and anything that you have. When you want something like a little kid wanting a toy, right? There's that desperation feeling inside. I'm sure you know it. It's a feeling of like, oh, please, 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 right? That is a very different feeling than sitting back going, whew, isn't this great? Right? Isn't this wonderful? Yeah, that's awesome. That is a very different feeling in your body, and that is what your radar picks up on. So, the very first step to get you there, instead of constantly wanting money, to make that switch, and you'll be surprised, the more you sit in this, the quicker it happens. How you make that switch from wanting to having, because you've got to sit in the having of it. The simplest way to get started is some sort of all-encompassing statement. And I'm going to use the word gratitude. And I know it's been kind of abused a lot when people are like, oh, just have gratitude. And it feels like, okay, I don't feel like having gratitude. But especially if I'm wanting, it doesn't feel very great. I don't feel gratitude towards that. So I say that with a grain of salt here because it really is a gratitude statement, but it's really more of a feeling. So taking moments in your day to get the feeling of, okay, let me just back up. If I were to say to you, get into the feeling of having $100 million or $1 million or $100,000, most people would be like, oh, okay, I don't know how to do that. It's virtually impossible unless you've been there before. So instead of focusing on that particular amount of money right now, the best thing that you can do is and when I say gratitude statement, it's a feeling of, wow, isn't this wonderful? Isn't this, God, isn't this great? Man, am I lucky? Man, woo, I am just fortunate. It is easier to get into that state because you can fake it till you make it in that state because you can think of anything to help you get into that state. Anything that you're having gratitude for, right? Man, am I lucky to be living where I live right now. Man, am I lucky to be having this relationship right now. Man, am I lucky to have I got this job in the nick of time or whatever. There's a way to get into the feeling of that and then lose that other aspect of it with a specific goal or a specific item that got you there and just sit in the feeling of like, wow, man, isn't this wonderful? Isn't this fabulous? That is the very first step. And the more you can get in there, that's a very having feeling, right? When you have it, when you have things, when you have what it is that you want, you sit in that feeling of, wow, yeah, this is great. Life is great. Life is good, right? For real, not just saying it, but you got to feel it because saying it, I'm sorry. You could say affirmations all day long and all that stuff. And that's why people that just sit and do affirmations, a lot of times they don't have a lot of success and they're like, "Well, I was hoping for this woo-woo thing to work because, I'm desperate." It's because you're desperate is why it doesn't work. It has nothing to do with what you're saying because you're saying things to your mind instead of feeling, and that does not engage that radar in your brain to be able to pick up on the things that will help you make that happen because action is required. You have to do things to make things happen, and but your radar won't pick up on those new things because you haven't been there. You're not there yet. And the only way that you can move forward to make a lot of money beyond the point of where you are right now, way beyond the point you are right now, is to be able to get into the feeling of having. There's actually a really good book. I'll have to find out who the author is. There is actually a book, I believe it's called The Having or Having. It is beautiful. It's this exact same concept. And I remember reading this years ago thinking, oh, that's what I talk about all the time. That's amazing. She's brilliant. Um, but anyway, so first is getting into the feeling. Then you have to revel in it. Okay, that's number two. You have to create a scene in your head. Like the moment, let's say you hit that number in your head, what do you want that to look like? Are you sitting on a beach somewhere with your partner or your family or your friends, your business partners, your team? Are you sitting there with a glass of champagne or a great cup of coffee? And are you guys cheersing and saying, "Wow, you guys, we did this. We did this. I did this." You've got to create some sort of scene and just a real quick one, not like the scene starts with the coffee and then you go to the ocean and then you go shopping and no, you got to stop your brain. You need a very quick, just this one moment where you're saying, God, isn't this wonderful? Or I did it. We did this. Something, and that scene in your head you can go back to because that takes your feelings to a whole different level when you visualize it. Like that now you're getting your sight involved. The more senses you can get involved in this scenario, of the feeling of having versus wanting, the quicker you're going to have, the quicker you actually are going to have. And if you can get all five senses, if you can sit there and smell the coffee while you're visualizing, those things will help. And you need to just sit in it as often as you can, especially if you're having one of those moments like, a big bill came in and you're like, oh boy, here we go. I don't know what I'm going to do. Take a moment and go back and visualize. And yes, I'm not telling you that you suddenly might get some money plopped down on you to pay that bill. I mean, that could happen. Let's not keep that from happening. But what I'm saying is your brain then will be aware, I've got this covered. I've got this covered. And your brain will start finding ways to cover that bill. And it will start picking up on opportunities so that you can have more money to pay that bill so it won't be a problem. It's kind of interesting how that happens. And the third step is consistency. And I know you're probably sick and tired of me saying consistency, but that is what it takes. It's really what it takes in life. And it's hard because we are in a society of we want it now. We are the Amazon society. I am just as guilty of it. So when we calm down from our quick little purchases on Amazon, how much I love them, we need to understand that building the future that you want, money included, is it takes consistency of being in the feeling and in the scenario of having versus wanting. Because you will start to see the change quicker the more consistent you can become at feeling. And if you are doing this, let's say for months on end, and you are not making progress, there is something wrong with you trying to feel something. You're not quite there yet. So don't give up. That's when you have to sit to yourself and say, okay, what am I not doing here? Because I'm somehow still not in the feeling of having, I'm still in the feeling of wanting. It's really what it is. So don't get discouraged. It takes practice, just like anything else in life. This takes a lot of practice. So, what exactly are you focusing on every area of your life? because that's what you're going to get. So it's kind of a big question. And are you focused on the lack of something versus the feeling of already having it? That's the question that you've got to discover for yourself. Whatever it is you want, whether it's money, relationships, whatever you want in this life, how are you sitting in that? Do you feel like you want it, or are you taking time to visualize and sit in the feeling of having? I want to thank you so much for joining me today. If this episode spoke to you in any way, remember to hit that follow button on your podcast app. And please tag me on social. Tell me what you took away today. I would love to hear it. Tell me what else you'd like me to talk about. I would love to incorporate it. If you'd like any more information on how to incorporate these tips into your ultimate 180 experience, just join my VIP VIP, there we go, VIP group on ultimate180.com and let's discover what's ultimately possible for you. You can catch all my episodes there on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your shows.